Welcome to Bent TV. I'm Andy McNamara and I'm continuing my discussion with Grace Lee. We are speaking about Grace's thesis, which is about people who come out in their mature years as transgender.
Yeah, look, we found some very interesting things. I mean, as part of that sort of hiding, a lot of people actually, hid clothes in various parts of their houses. Sheds and garages are very common places for people to hide their clothes, the stash.
These are, just going to reiterate, people identified as male at birth, but ultimately realise that they're female, maybe at teenage years, but then they've actually come out to the world between the ages of 40 and 70, much later.
That's right. And they've been living, fairly conventional lives. In fact, very successful conventional lives in many cases.
Careers, marriages, families, all sorts of hetero, super male pursuits.
They're looking completely sort of blending into the rest of the community. But as one of my sort of participants said, I had to lie to people I love. What else do? You're just in this tangled web of emotions that just screws you up, screws your life up so badly because it is so wrong. And you perpetuate the lie through your whole life, and eventually your life becomes a lie.
Wow.
So sometimes people get pretty down. I mean, they are living a sort of very forced sort of life, and they're trying to manage their way of getting through this.
Someone said to me, there is no emotion stronger than shame.
It is a very powerful emotion, and it kind of drives people to all sorts of behaviours. And it's seeing a fundamental failing in yourself, which is very unfortunate, very frightening, and can make people feel quite ill. But people then started to realise, that as they found out more about transgender issues and identities.
Thank heavens for the internet.
Many of them, that's right. Many of them actually sort of started to plan how to come out.
Wow.
Which was good, because what I found was that there was kind of two sorts of approaches. People either planned or they didn't plan. The ones who kind of blurted it out very often didn't have such a good outcome.
At Christmas lunch or something.
So, it can be so emotional. And it's sort of like, there's a quote here, I got to the stage where I didn't want to be male. I just wanted to dress more and more and more. The need was overpowering, and I didn't really know what to do. And I said, I've got to do something. And this person then told their wife, and they had a very sympathetic response, which was excellent. Others have really thought it through, and I think this is the important thing. There's some learnings that we're getting from this sort of research, and that is that some people actually sat down and really thought about, how am I going to tell people, what language am I going to use, who am I going to tell first? So it might be brothers and sisters, for example, or parents if the parents are still alive, and obviously partners. And how are they going to do that? Are they going to send them an email? Are they going to write them a letter? Are they going to sit them down? Do they shock them? Do they walk into the room in a dress and say, oh, by the way, I'm trans? Some ways are better than others, and the ones where it's planned and where it's perhaps a little bit more subtle and gives people time to kind of absorb the story, but also involves the emotion. It's important. Many people did find that when they told somebody about themselves, they got a very sympathetic response.
Wow, it's an incredibly hard thing for a partner to comprehend in any way. Some may have had an inkling, but some would have had no idea.
Most had no idea at all.
Wow.
As a rule, the hiding was so good. Or, some people might have come out a little bit to begin with, and they would do it kind of quite subtly, like, oh, sometimes I like to wear women's clothes, and then it would be kind of like played as a bit of a bit of fun.
Yep.
But then later on, it would have to come out that actually it's more than that. This is how I sense my own identity. And when people do finally get to that point of coming out to their family and friends, early in their lives, it was filled with shame. Certainly around the time of coming out, there's a lot of fear of rejection, fear of being ostracised within the family and the community. And then once they come out, there is this pride that really starts to show.
They're excited to be a transgender person.
Yeah.
Help others and tell the world.
That's right. And they sort of say, well, life is too short. Why didn't I do this 20 years ago? I'm so keen to be part of everything. One thing my partner noticed is that I'm much happier as a person.
Yep.
So some really positive statements. And one of my other people said, my being trans, I am whatever, and proud of it. My coming out to the world essentially means saying, take it or leave it, here I am.
Yep.
So we've gone from people who were, you know, scared, frightened, humiliated, shamed, hiding, and now they're saying, you know, kind of, here I am, this is it now, I've found myself, and I can live with that, and the rest of the community can try to do that as well.
Fantastic. And I guess, yeah, it's the same for gay people, obviously, too. I think just a lot of them, the eternal question is, why didn't I do it earlier? Like, I went along with it for so long.
Well, that's right.
So do you think there's been a generation of trans people who have come out sort of often after their working career, and now we're getting a group of trans people who are starting to come out before their working career at school and university and early on?
Absolutely.
But there was almost nothing in between. It's really gone from
Yeah, I think
50s
it's because
to 20s.
we've seen, you know, I mean, okay, there was some sort of, you know, there were a few famous people, you know, back in the sort of 60s and 70s with Christine Jorgensen and April Ashley and Jan Morris, but they were sort of like big superstars and they were the, you know, the classic, you know, sort of transsexual, and I suppose, you know, they obviously had the support and the money and the interest in them, and it wasn't something attainable for most people, or even to know if they identified like that.
No.
And I think we kind of, you know, do keep making the assumption that there are just two genders, and I think what we're seeing very clearly these days is that, you know, gender's very fluid. People can, you know, have quite a diverse expression around their own gender. Not everybody, you know, wants necessarily to be one or the other.
True.
They might be neither, or they might be a combination of several kind of gender expressions. So, you know, I think that's becoming more apparent, and especially amongst young people today.
Yes.
You know, the surveys that have been done recently show young people are much more sort of free and easy about what their gender expression is, and that's got to be very healthy.
Yes, and even some who have no inkling that they're, like, some of them might be clear that their gender's one or the other, but why not celebrate different genders and dress certain way? Like, it's all fluid and relaxed and open, and it seems so logical and sensible when you think, what was all that stigma that has gone on?
Absolutely. You know, the fact that we just have these such rigid rules, but, you know, it is a reality of life, unfortunately, that for many people, you know, gender is almost immutable.
Yes.
And for, you know, someone like me, they will find very confronting, simply because I do not fit the mould. I don't fit in that box or that box.
Grace, tell us, what are you doing with your thesis? What are you doing after your thesis? What value is this going to be to the world?
Okay, well, I think we've got to, you know, this is a good sort of, you know, expression of what it's like to be trans, what it's like to be an older trans person in Australia.
Totally.
So, I mean, I'm a counsellor, and I work with trans and gender diverse people a lot, and I know that it's hard to find counsellors who understand the intricacies of this. So, amongst other things, I'm hoping that this piece of work will help, you know, counsellors and psychologists understand something of the experience of being trans, and that will help them provide the therapy that's most appropriate.
And I'm sure you've learned a lot doing it, and will make you a better counsellor.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Grace, thanks so much for coming on Bent TV tonight. I am Andy McNamara. We'll see you next time.